No matter how you slice it, the nations will not be saved. No matter how you slice it, only the Israelites will be saved. No matter how you slice it, no nation will be, in the kingdom of heaven with the Israelites joint ruling. No matter how you slice it, the nations that's just going, they're going into slavery. Bottom line. I'd like to start off by saying Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Chakodash. Welcome to another live lesson. As you heard, the name of the lesson is No Matter How You Slice It. I'm going to play something real quick that the elder Yashawamba sent to me. And we're going to build from there because we've been asking these two individuals at the Genesis, are the nations going to be in the chariots, the salvation in the chariots? And this is their response. So listen up.
This is some of the stuff the question that we get asked. So you guys are saying that a Gentile is going to get on a chariot? That's bugged out. That makes no sense. That's dumb. In Ezekiel 20, it describes the whole nation of Israel being gathered, even the wicked amongst us, to get to the wilderness to then be purged out, the wicked in particular. That would mean someone who assaults children, someone who burns people alive, an idolater, someone who I'm not going to say it for YouTube, someone who forcefully lays down with a woman, they would be gathered there too. So you're saying it's crazier so you would much rather look to your left on a chariot and see someone who is a serial grapeist, but he just happens to be the same stock as you, than to see some Gentile who keeps the commandments?
I want to say,
do you love God more, or do you hate Gentiles more? Which one?
They clearly hate Gentiles.
So you heard it from the horse's mouth. I didn't make it up. You could replay it, when you get a chance and you want. Pretty much he's saying that the nations that are going to be saved here in America, the actual heathens, are going to be in the chariots. Say, would you rather be in a chariot with a rapist or, a murderer or whatever, however he put it? First of all, the ones that make it out of here are going to be the elect. There ain't going to be no demon on the chariot. All right. The ones that make it out of here are those that came to great tribulation. The Lord is not going to deliver the Israelites out of great tribulation, the elect, and then bring them into the wilderness and destroy them. All right. The nations are not going to be on the chariots. Bottom line. But these devils are going to keep going at it because they must have got a nice designer bag full of a good chunk of change, which is being devalued by the day. So this is just based off of just some precepts that I was putting together. I was doing a little reading last night, and I went through some of the books in Revelations, and a couple of scriptures popped out at me. So I wanted to kind of build a lesson around that, on how throughout history, we as a nation of Israel have gone into captivity under every nation. Every nation has had a hand, in, our captivity, demise, hardships, so on and so forth. All right. Now, some of those nations, they did all right for us. Some of them were a lot more wicked, but at the end of the day, they're all still going into captivity. Let's start off first with Jeremiah 30, verse 16. And then from there, we're going to go to another precept. Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 16 says, therefore, all they that devour thee shall be devoured. Right? So the Edomites, the Assyrians, the Babylonians, so on and so forth. All that devour thee shall be devoured, and all thine adversaries. All of the nations are our adversaries. Every last one of them, no matter how you slice it. Every one of them, in case you don't understand, understand all thine enemies, every one of them shall go into captivity. So all of the heathen nations are going to go into captivity. Bottom line. And they that spoil thee shall be a spoil, and all that prey upon thee will I give for a prey. For I, meaning Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua, will restore health unto thee, and I will heal thee of thy wounds. And what are the wounds? the putrefying sores. But outside of the wickedness that Jake's done, the beatings, the hardships, the curses, being up under these nations and everything that they've done to us. The here in America, the purposeful way that we live, these projects. There was a video I was watching of these devils that did a study on rats to see how they would do in a jacked up, messed up environment. And them rats was, it was just horrible. So you would think that they would use that experiment not to have people live in those conditions, but to have the opposite environment. But no, they push that environment and they use that environment for Jake. And when I say Jake, I'm talking about the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians. And that's why you see so much crime. First and foremost is the curses upon us, and second of all, it's the conditions that we live in, which is a direct, cause of the curses. Curse shall thou be in the city, curse shall thou be in the field. There's no coincidence. You have ghettos, you have hoods, you have barrios, you have favelas, down in like Brazil and down that area. You have shanty towns, like in Jamaica and other places. You have, all different types of living conditions that Jake is subjected to that's toxic. So these are the wounds. In the parable of the Lazarus and the rich man, it said that the dogs licked up the sores. Who are the dogs? The other nations. And what are the sores? Well, the curses that are upon us as a nation and our conditions that we find ourselves in. So all of our enemies are going to go into captivity, but the Lord says he's going to restore health unto us. And he's going to heal us of our wounds. Save the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahshua, because they called thee an outcast, saying, this is Zion whom no man seeketh after. So there's no one out there that is pleading our cause. The people that they're pleading the cause for are those small hats that are the ones causing the most misery on the planet Earth. And people are waking up to that. I had a thought I was going to go to chat and ask chat something, but I forgot. Lord's will, I'll do it later. Right here, outcast. The word there for outcast is nadach. Nadach, which is to impel, thrust, drive away, banish. So we were banished. We were outcasted. This is why we're known also as exiles. And exile is one driven from his home. So we were driven to be servants. We were driven out of our homes. So the Lord said he's going to restore health unto us. He's going to build us back up. This is why the prophecy states that the Lord will build up the tabernacles of David that are fallen. And under David's rule, all nations were under his foot. Same thing with King Solomon. So the nations were subjected unto us. Now in the kingdom of heaven, these nations are going to have to pay for the wickedness that they did, hardcore slavery. If you happen to have any of the nations that were decent to Israel, guess what? They'll still get their head beat in if they don't act right, but they won't get it as bad as Esau. And Esau, every last Edomite is going to get their head beat in. You got these clowns that the GOCC used to teach that there's 5 Edomites or something along those lines, 5 Edomites that were good or some crazy shit like that. Some bugged out. It was about as bugged out as teaching that they're actual mermaids in the sea. Half fish, half woman. Blasphemy. Bullshit. Anyways, let's go from there. Let's go to Psalms, the 83rd chapter. Let's build more on this. Because no matter how you slice it, the nations are going into captivity. No matter how you slice it, the nations will not be in the chariots of Israel. They are called the chariots of Israel for a reason. No matter how you slice it, they're going into captivity. Only the Israelites are going to be saved. Bottom line. All right. So Psalm 83:1, keep not thou silence, O Most High, hold not thy peace, and be not still, O power. Right, because the world, the nations of the world, especially their rulers and their kings, they're doing good. They're in safety as far as, their wealth and all of that. But we catching hell. So Asaph here asked the Lord not to keep silence. Do something about this. For lo, thine enemies, the enemies of who? The Most High and us, make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. And this is why the nations always came against us. You know, they hate the Most High. How do we know that they hate him? Because they always look for avenues to where we would do something wrong so that they could come against us, knowing that we are the people of the Most High. Bottom line. It says they have taken crafty counsel against thy people. Right. When you're crafty, you're really slick, conniving. You know? Definition. A clever at achieving one's aims by indirect or deceitful methods. And this is what Esau does. Indirect and deceitful methods, because outside of the blessing of the sword, his other blessing is that they work with deception. All right, so outside of the blessing of the sword, their other blessing is deception. The serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field, and the serpent in the garden was not no goddamn Canaanite. First of all, the Canaanites didn't exist at that time. The Canaanites didn't come till way later. You know, when Noah had Ham, they came out of Ham. And you can't say, well, you know, they were in the land of Canaan. No, because the land of Canaan didn't exist back then, called Canaan. The land was called, there was the Garden of Eden. There was no land of Canaan. There were no Canaanites back then. So the serpent in the garden was definitely not a Canaanite. Fucking clowns, boy, I tell you. It says they have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. Who are the hidden ones? The Israelites. How are we hidden? Because no one, you can have a special documentary on any PBS, on Netflix, anywhere, and they will give chance to any other nation on the planet Earth as being the Israelites, except for the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians. This shows you how low we've been brought as a nation. This shows you how despised we are as a nation. So the consensus of these nations is the hell with those Israelites, but you're going to give them a pass as they can be saved in the chariots. You're going to give them a pass as they can be in the kingdom of heaven. The only part they're going to play in the kingdom of heaven is to be slaves, servants. That's it. And after the 1,000-year period, they'll be allowed to rule among their lands, among their own people, but they will still be tributary to us. And don't listen to Bishop Nathaniel. The Lord is not going to destroy all nations. Who the fuck is going to be the slaves, the servants? You got some real bugged out shit going on in Israel today. And the enemies are loving it. But you know what? It's all prophecy. Because the Lord is making his truth more and more precious. As Elder Apostle Gabar always says, that truth is precious, because there's a lot of truth, right? There's plenty of truth, but it's not open for everyone to get it. So it's precious. Like during the time of Samuel. I believe it said that during the time of Samuel, there was no open vision, or before that, or something along those lines. I can't think of the exact quote. You brothers know what I'm talking about. There was no open vision. So what? The word of the Lord was precious. So in these times, the more popular the Hebrew Israelites become, the more precious the word becomes, because the harder it is to get to the actual truth. So not only do you have to contend with these different religions, you also have to contend with these false prophets among the Israelites. So it says they have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation. And this is why Trump and the Trump administration are mainly going after the so-called Latin tribes. Because if they didn't know back then, they definitely know now that the so-called Latin tribes are the lost tribes of the nation of Israel, the 10 lost tribes. And this is why they're going after them. Out of all of the nations that are here on the soils of America that came through those borders so-called illegally, the only ones that are the biggest threats, the most the ones that do all the work, that pick your crops, that that build up your houses, that do all the menial tasks that no one else wants to do, they are the biggest threat. They're the ones that's being hunted down like animals. Why is that? Because they don't want the nation of Israel to come back together. And we're at that point where the Lord is gathering all of the tribes. And the ball is already in motion. There's nothing you could do to turn it back. It says that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. Now, the name Israel is still around. The land is still called that. You can still speak about it. You can still hear this name Israel, but that it be not in remembrance in who? Among the Israelites. The true Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians. When you call yourself Black, when you call yourself Latino, when you call yourself Native American Indian, when you call yourself Baptist, Buddhist, Methodist, Muslim, whatever, you're not a threat. Asiatic black man, you're not a threat to Esau. But when you start calling yourself an Israelite, a Hebrew Israelite, a true man of the law, of people of the Most High, Yahweh Shem Shai, that's when you become a threat, right? So the word here for remembrance should be the word Zakar. Yep, Zakar. Right. And I want to show you something, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. Zakar, right? To remember, recall, call to mind. So that this name, that we would not call ourselves by this name. Why? Because they did an excellent job in erasing it through their crafty counsels, through their deception. Now, I want to go real quick, just building on that word real quick. In the book of Revelation, chapter 11, right? This goes hand in hand with the valley of dry bones in Ezekiel 37, all right? The bones represent the whole house of Israel in a dead state mentally. So here in Revelation 11:8, and their dead bodies, meaning the dead bodies or the spiritually dead bodies of the Israelites, shall lie in the street of that great city, which is what? America, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt. Sodom, you know what that was known for, freakism, and all that alphabet city lifestyle. And Egypt was known for captivity, slavery, just like America, where also our Lord was crucified, meaning he was crossed out, right? And they of the people, meaning the other nations and kindreds and tongues and nations, shall see their dead bodies 3 days and a half. So this is a prophetic time. And they seen us in that condition for all this time, yet they said nothing. They didn't speak up. They didn't say, well, to put the Israelites to rest. They didn't say, well, you're going through what you're going through, but you're going to get revenge at the end because you are the people of the Most High. You are the Israelites. You're going to eventually get, vengeance upon your enemies. You just got to suffer this for now. They didn't do that. It says, and shall not suffer their dead bodies to be put in graves. Now, when we look this word graves up, right? Go down here to the word graves. You have the word Nema or Nema, right? Which means a monument or memorial to perpetuate the memory of any person or thing. So they didn't put it back into our remembrance. They didn't suffer us to be put in graves or to be put at rest spiritually. A sepulcher, a monument, a sepulcher, a tomb. Now, when we go to the root word of this word, neomai, right? It says here to remind. See? So they didn't remind us that we are the people of the Most High. Why? Because they said, let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. Among who? Among the true Israelites. To be recalled or to return to one's mind. To remind oneself of, to remember. See, to be recalled to mind. So you get the idea. So to be brought back to or return to one's mind. And that's what they did. So they did not do that the whole time we were here in captivity, under Esau. And all of these nations know. All right. So going back to Psalms 83, And 4, they have said, come, let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance, for they have consulted together with one consent. So they were all complicit in this. They were all conspirators in this one cause, all of these nations. They are confederate, meaning together, against thee. Against who? The Israelites. The Hebrew Israelites, the true Hebrew Israelites. The tabernacles of Edom, first on the list, the so-called white man. And not because you look like a so-called white man does that mean that you're an Edomite. You have a lot of Israelites out there that look like Edomites because of the true Israelites mingling their seed among the Edomite women. Just like on the same token, you have a lot of so-called Jake-looking, black-looking, so-called black, so-called Latino-looking individuals that are really Edomites. But no one ever talks about that. They only talk about, if you look white, you're white. No, it depends on where your line goes back to. And remember, Esau was the firstborn. And he was supposed to get the inheritance, but the inheritance went to Jacob. So he was salty about that. And plus he got, supplanted for his blessing also. Right? It says in second in line is what? And the Ishmaelites. Ishmael also was the firstborn. But the promise and inheritance passed from him to Isaac. So they're both salty. That's why they're both on the front of the list. Because they are the two, they were the closest out of all nations. They were the closest to get the blessing that the Lord promised Abraham. But they both missed because they were not that seed. They were not the promise. Then the next one of Moab and the Hagarenes, which are, the sons of Hagar. When you do the research, they tell you that they're Arabian tribes. They try to link them with the Ishmaelites. No, they're not linked with the Ishmaelites, although Abraham was the father of the Ishmaelites, and the father of Hagar's sons. But they are like, nomads that you could call them, Esau lumps them up as being Arabs, because the word Arab goes back to the Hebrew word Arab, which means mixed. Gabal, which were Hamites, if my memory serves correct, and Ammon, which are the Moabites are the Chinese, Ammon are the Japanese, and Amalek. Amalek is the head tribe of the Edomites. When you go to Genesis 36, it shows you that you had Edomites, that one of their descendants was named Amalek. This is who that goes to. And Amalek is the top enemy of the nation of Israel. But in general, the Edomites are. It says the Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre, which are the real Egyptians. The people that are in the land of Egypt right now are Ishmaelites. They came in there after the 600 ADs, because prior to them, you had Jake ruling in there, but then you had the Edomite, the Ptolemies ruling. And before them, you had the actual Hamites, the actual Egyptians, which go back to Mizraim. Because Alexander the Great in around 300 some odd AD, he conquered Egypt. This is why it's called Alexandria, Egypt, the capital city. And then from that point until the transition took place, you had, Edomite rulers. This is why you have some pharaoh statues that look like straight up Edomites, because there was a particular dynasty where the Ptolemaic Empire was ruling, that was ruled by Egypt was ruled by these white looking or these Edomite pharaohs. And then after that, I'm not sure, I don't remember if Jake got in there for a little bit, but definitely the Ishmaelites took over that land, going back to after 600 AD, when Islam started to, grow in that region. Okay, that's why today you see Arab-looking Egyptians, and they think that they're really Egyptians, and they're not. Their forefathers just conquered that land. It says, in the inhabitants of Tyre, which are Canaanites, Ashur, which are the Assyrians, also was joined with them. They have hope in the children of Lot. The children of Lot are the Moabites and the Ammonites. Salah. So these nations all had a part in putting our people into captivity. putting hardships upon us, not allowing us to be put to rest mentally, spiritually. So they all going to go into captivity. So no matter how you slice it, all of these nations are going to go into captivity. So let's go from there to Daniel chapter 9. I'm going to read a couple of verses. Let's start at verse 7. Daniel 9 and 7. O Lord, Yahweh Bashem Shai, righteousness belongeth unto thee, but unto us confusion of faces. Yeah, because we were scattered among these nations, and we were ripped out of our land, and that's why we were like, what the hell, like what's going on? As at this day, to the men of Judah, which is the southern kingdom, and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, which is the northern kingdom, and unto all Israel, listen good, that are near, that were in the land at the time, and that are far off. Because at this time you had Jakes that lived, that were in the land, right? But then you also had Israelites that were abroad. And this goes hand in hand with Ephesians, the 2nd chapter, which shows you in Ephesians, the 2nd chapter, this is more proof that the Ephesians that the Apostle Paul was speaking to were Israelites, saints, that were afar off, because these are the ones that were scattered abroad. And the ones that were scattered abroad, not all of them kept to the traditions, customs, and religion of Israel. It says, through all the countries whither thou hast driven them, because of their trespass that they have trespassed against thee. O Lord, to us belongeth confusion of face, to our kings, to our princes, and to our fathers, because we have sinned against thee. To the Lord our power belong mercies and forgivenesses, though we have rebelled against him. Neither have we obeyed the voice of the Lord our power to walk in his laws, which he set before us by his servants the prophets. That's why the curses came upon us. Yea, all Israel have transgressed thy law, even by what? Departing. And this is what happened. We departed, worshiping idols and all of that they might not obey thy voice. Therefore, what curse? Curse in Deuteronomy 28 and other curses is poured upon us. And the oath that is written in the law of Moses, the servant of the Most High, because we have sinned against him. And he hath confirmed his words, which he spake against us and against our judges that judged us, by bringing upon us a great evil. For under the whole heaven have not been done as had been done upon Jerusalem. And this is why we are the ones that need to be delivered or saved. The other nations are in their salvation. This is why the other nations that are here in America that came through those borders so-called illegally are not being targeted by ICE and deported and locked up and Lord knows what else is going on. There's all kind of stories out there of what they're doing to these migrants that they're so-called migrants that they're capturing. All kind of stuff that's going on. And if you speak about it, they'll take your channel down. So it says, as it is written in the law of Moses, all this evil is come upon us, yet may we not our prayer before the Lord our power, that we might turn from our iniquities and understand thy truth. Right? Because the thing about this captivity was the Lord stripped his name from us. And that's why we weren't able to call back on him. Because King Solomon said, if your people be scattered, if they're driven away by the enemy, if they're in captivity, or whatever the case may be, if they turn to this place and call upon thy name, then deliver them, hear them and deliver them. I'm just merely paraphrasing. So we lost that connection. And the beautiful thing about this time was we got the name of the Lord Yahweh back, and we got his son's name back, Yahweh Shai. And this is why you have these top major groups that are trying to erase. There's another way that they're crucifying the Lord's name. They're trying to erase the Lord's name, saying we don't know the name. His name is Christ. All this other madness. And those are very important keys in the building of this faith, of this truth. We were all ignorant of it. The Lord had mercy on us in our ignorance, but then came a point where the Lord allowed us to understand or see, his truth and get their names, Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh, Shah. We can call upon those names. It says, therefore have Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh, Shah, watched upon the evil and brought it upon us, for the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, our power is righteous in all his works which he doeth, for we obeyed not his voice. All right, so let's go from there. Like I said, I just got a couple of precepts written. I'm gonna go to them as the Spirit gives me, utterance. So let's go to Zechariah chapter 1. Let me show you something. Zechariah chapter 1. We're going to read just a couple of verses. Start at the 14th verse. And we're going to get also the 15th verse, but we're going to get it. So let me go to the 14th verse. It says, matter of fact, I'll start at 13. And the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai answered the angel that talked with me with good words and comfortable words. So the angel that communed with me said unto me, cry thou, saying, thus saith the Lord power of hosts, I am jealous for Jerusalem and for Zion with a great jealousy. Why? Because the nations had put us into captivity and really kicked our ass. It says, I am very sore displeased with the heathen that are at ease, for I was but a little displeased, and they helped forward the affliction. So they went overboard. When we read this in the NLT, the 15th verse, but I am very angry with the other nations that are now enjoying peace and security. I was only a little angry with my people, but the nations inflicted harm on them far beyond my intentions. So no matter how you slice it, you heathens are fucked. You're going into captivity, hardcore slavery. Don't listen to those two magpies. No amount of money that you could give them is going to change that. You're not going to change the narrative of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. You're not going to change, the way that the Lord or the program that the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai had already written down. There's no changing that. There's no getting around that. So no matter how you slice it, the outcome is still always going to be the same. So it says, therefore, thus saith the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, I am returned to Jerusalem. And the narrative and the story is always the same. Yeah, Jake went off. I kicked your ass. I stripped you. This is what the Lord's saying. I'm just merely just painting a picture. But now I'm coming back. I'm going to have mercy on you. Look at you. You're all fucked up. So I got to come and bind you up and heal you, and comfort you. I was pissed off, but them heathen, they took it too far. This is what we read in here. It says, I am returned to Jerusalem with mercies, because the Lord will yet choose Israel and set them in their own land. Why? Because of his word to Abraham, the oath and the promise to Abraham. So no matter how destitute we became, how messed up we became, how low we became, the Lord always made a way to have mercy on us. And the way he had mercy on us this time was by allowing us to get his name, his son's name, and his truth, the real truth. That you have these clowns that are fighting day and night to destroy. May they be delivered unto Satan. May Satan have his way with them devils. So it says, with mercies, my house shall be built, be built in it. Right, because we're reestablishing, the Lord is reestablishing the tabernacles of David. Saith Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai of hosts, and a line shall be stretched forth upon Jerusalem, right? Because Jerusalem is going to be built back. The people first, which is happening right now, and after the destruction, the actual land and the actual city and Israel and the Levant, all of that, what they call the Levant, which is the Garden of Eden. That land that the Lord gave to us, that he chose specifically for this chosen seed before the world was even created. It says, cry yet, saying, thus saith the Lord Yahweh Bashem Shai of hosts, my cities through prosperity shall yet be spread abroad, and the Lord Yahweh Bashem Shai shall yet comfort Zion, and shall yet choose Jerusalem. Nothing about the nations. The nations are the ones that got us in this effed up state. So the Lord is going to be the one to come back to deliver us and to build us back up. Now, let's go to the next chapter. Zechariah chapter 2, we're going to start at verse 6. Ho, ho, come forth and flee from the land of the north. What land of the north is that? America. The Israelites are here in America. America is where the greatest deliverance is going to happen. The scriptures say that when the Lord comes back to deliver the Israelites from the land of the north, it's going to make the deliverance from the land of Egypt take a back seat and be no more in remembrance. People are still talking about that. You still see movies about that. There's still mention of that. There's still talks about that. There's still people that mention these points, documentaries and all of that about it. There's no other deliverance that the Lord did for the Israelites that outshined the deliverance of Egypt from the land of the north. We were among the Medes and the Persians. We were among the Babylonians and the Assyrians. You know, some of us were taken up into Greece, into Rome. These are all northern parts. The Lord delivered Jake from all those different regions and areas. So why isn't that something that's celebrated today that outshines the deliverance from Egypt? Because that hasn't happened yet. It's about to happen. It says, deliver thyself, O Zion, that dwellest with the daughter of Babylon. Right. Don't be mixed and mingled with this place. You know, we gotta do what we gotta do. Use the world as not abusing it, but don't be entangled with the affairs of the world. For thus saith the Lord Yahweh Bashem Shai of hosts. It says, after the glory hath he sent me unto the nations, which are the heathens, which spoiled you. So no matter how you slice it, these nations are the ones that spoil us, and they're going to go into captivity. They're not going to fucking be saved, man. What the fuck is wrong with these guys? Well, that's what they say. Money talks, bullshit walks. That bag must have been really nice. It says, for he that toucheth you toucheth the apple of his eye, meaning the most precious possession that you have, the most precious treasure. So we are the Most High's most precious treasure that these nations put hell on. And the Lord is coming back to visit them. So how in the hell are they going to receive salvation? How many heathens you know out there when we brothers out there in the streets? Let's just deal with America. How many heathens you know out there in the streets of America where you have all these different camps, Moabites and Ammonites and Ishmaelites and Elamites and Hamites, all these different, just come to the camp and inquire of what's going on. The believing Gentiles, shut the fuck up, man. It says, for behold, I will shake mine hand upon them, meaning the nations, and they shall be a spoil to their servants, and you shall know that the Lord of hosts, Yahweh Shem Shai, have sent me. Sing and rejoice, O daughter of Zion, for lo, I come, and I will dwell in the midst of thee, saith the Lord, Yahweh Shem Shai. So the Lord's going to dwell in the midst of us. This is talking about the Israelites. And when you read further down about the nations, this is talking about the Israelites scattered among the nations. These two clowns are trying to use this now, saying, well, that's talking about the other nations can be saved. Weak ass points. You know? Weak ass points. But the simple are going to believe it. But the prudent are going to look well till they're going. Because they're going to be guided by the spirit of Yahweh Bashem Shai. Let's go real quick to Jeremiah 49. And verse 12, just going to go straight to the point. This is directed at Edom. You can see it concerning Edom, verse 7. Verse 12. For thus saith the Lord Yahweh Bashem Shai, behold, they whose judgment was not to drink of the cup have assuredly drunk. And who's that? The Israelites. Because the Lord chose us to be a special people, a royal people. You know? We weren't supposed to go into captivity, but the Lord set it up that way anyway. We had to be brought down so that we could be built back up. So we drank of that cup. What's that cup? Slavery, the curses. You know, look at the condition that Jake is in here. I mean, Jake is in a bad way, man. Every city you go into in America and around the world, but we're dealing with America, Babylon the Great. Jake is through. I mean, they are there. You can't get no lower than this. If ever a people are the people of the Most High that these curses fell upon, that's us, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians. You go all throughout these different hoods, the different places. Through. There was a CEO, I believe, ex-employee of Campbell, just made a statement on one of those posts. Somebody sent it to me that the food that they make is for poor people. Bioengineered meats and just a bunch of crap in it. He said it's garbage. And I believe they're coming after him now for saying that. He said he don't even touch that. He won't even eat it. Who do you think that goes? You see Campbell soup everywhere. It says, and art thou he that shall altogether go unpunished? So we, the royal people, caught hell. You, the basis people, are not going to catch hell? The fuck out of here. Thou shalt not go unpunished, but thou shalt surely drink of it. You can read the whole book of Obadiah. And it'll tell you, which is one chapter long. It'll tell you the judgment of Esau and the reason for the judgment. Because their final judgment is to be burnt up. And the Edomites are the only nation that's going to be done away with after they serve the captivity in the kingdom of heaven. The other nations will always be around. So don't listen to Bishop Nathaniel. He's bugging out. Now, let's go from there to Isaiah 34. It's one of my favorites here. We're just going to go straight to the point. This is matter of fact, I'm going to read the first verse, which this is concerning all the nations and their militaries, their armies. Isaiah 34:1. Come near, ye nations, to hear, and hearken, ye people. Let the earth hear, and all that dwell therein. And all that is therein. The world and all things that come forth of it. This is a message to the world, to all peoples, heathens and non-heathens, Israelites and heathens, right? But mainly to the nations, because this is not dealing with the Israel. Although you're going to have Israelites that's going to suffer this fate here on the soils of America, but this is directed to the nations and their militaries. Verse 8, why is the Lord going to bring the destruction? For it is a day of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai's vengeance. Let's look up the word vengeance. Lord's vengeance, right? The word there is naquam. Naquam, right? Vengeance. Vengeance by the Most High, by Samson, by enemies of Judah. Right, let's see what else we got here. Right, to avenge. Matter of fact, let's just look it up so you can get a better understanding of what the word vengeance means. So vengeance, punishment inflicted or retribution exacted for an injury or wrong. So it's a payback. So going back, when we read this, right? It says for Isaiah 34:8, for it is the day of the Lord's vengeance and the year of recompenses. For what? The controversy of Zion. For what you devils did to the nation of Israel. Right. NLT, for it is a day of the Lord's revenge, the year when Edom will be paid back for all it did to Israel. It's for the controversy of Zion. And you're the top on the list. But it's all of you collectively, not just the Edomites. But this is directed to Esau because right now they are the head, nation that's ruling. And they will be the last nation or the last heathen nation to rule the planet Earth before Yahushua comes back. And no matter how you slice it, you can't get around that. Even David Guzik had to admit to that, even though he said he don't submit to that or so. Don't I forget how he worded it. That he doesn't accept it or something along that line. But it don't matter if you accept it or not. It's still what it is. It still was written. You know, the devil's a trip, right? All right, let's go from there to Jeremiah 51. Got a couple more. Jeremiah 51:24. We're going to read a couple of verses. Jeremiah 51:24. And I will render unto Babylon and to all the inhabitants of Chaldea, America, all their evil that they have done in Zion in your sight, saith the Lord Yahweh B'Shem El. Yeah, because the Lord's going to pay these devils back. Behold, I am against thee, O destroying mountain, saith the Lord Yahweh B'Shem El Shai, which destroyeth all the earth. And I will stretch out my hand upon thee and roll thee down from the rocks and will make thee a burnt mountain. So this place is going to be destroyed just based off of the facts of what they did to the nation of Israel. That's the top priority. Never mind all the other wicked shit you did to the nations and everything, you know, all the wicked stuff you've done. The freak mind state that you put on the planet. Never mind all that. The beginning of it is for what you did to us. This land is blood soaked. It can never be cleansed ever, except by those nuclear missiles and the lasers from the chariots. That's the only way this land could be cleansed. That's it. Let's see. And they shall not take of thee a stone for a corner. It's crazy because the elder Yashuamba was watching a video where he was going into this. Nor for a stone for foundation, because there's not going to be anything left here in America. It's going to be a burnt mountain. But thou shalt be desolate forever, saith the Lord Yahweh B'Shem El Shai, never again inhabited. The ancient Babylon, which is over there in Iraq, there's still people that walk around there. You know, you have ruins, but you have people that still walk around there. You still have people, you know, all in that region, that area. So that's not what this ain't talking about that. This is talking about another place, a spiritual place, or a place that's known spiritually as Babylon the Great, which is America. Set ye up a standard in the land. Okay, so pretty much it was supposed to be the two verses, 24 and 25. All right, so let's go from there to Revelation 11. I'm going to start at the first verse, but the point is in verse 2. Like I said, these are just like some random precepts that I was putting together concerning, you know, the punishment that's going to come upon these nations, and pretty much really for what they did to the nation of Israel. Revelation 11:1, and there was given me a reed like unto a rod, and the angel stood saying, rise and measure the temple of the Most High and the altar and all and them that worship therein. Right, because this is the Israelites, or these are the Israelites that worship therein. This is the temple of the Most High. It says, but the court which is without the temple, leave out, measure it not, for it is given unto the Gentiles, the actual nations, because they have no part with us. And the holy city, the Israelites, shall they tread underfoot 42 months. That's the same 3.5 years. You know, that's the same, you know, time, and the dividing of times, which is a period, prophetic period. And then other places it says 42 months. Other places time, and the dividing the times. 1,260 days, I believe. Another one. You know, this all prophetic for 350 years from 1619 to 1969. That was that, and even to now, extends to even now, because we're still under this devil's hand, and it's just getting worse. You know, you see the condition that Jake is out here. It's hurtful to see sometimes, but you know that it's the judgment of the Lord. So that's what keeps us, grounded, stable. You know, you got these kids, teenagers. I'm talking about obese, so obese. Their parents that are obese can outwork them. It's a goddamn shame. I mean, they got rolls on top of rolls on top of rolls on top of rolls, and they still shoving their face with this bullshit ass food. And Jake out here don't know any better, and they're just trying to, buy, the get the most bang for their buck, as they say. And the garbage is cheap because it's chemicals. It's shit they created in the fucking lab. They cloned Tyrone. And they're selling it cheap. And then, the economy is fucked up. Jake ain't doing that great. So they got to buy what they can afford. So that's one. Let's go from there to Revelation, the next chapter, 12, and verses 13 and 14. It says, and when the dragon saw that he was cast unto the earth, he persecuted the woman which brought forth the man-child. This is dealing with the Roman Empire, but it also extends to Esau in general, their empires. And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that this is a great escape, that she might fly into the wilderness, that's in the interiors of so-called Africa, into her place. What was her place? Here in America. Because when 6 AD into 70 AD happened, it was estimated that a whole bunch of Israelites fled. I don't remember the exact number. They said over 1 million, but that was going back to 65 BC during the time of Pompey. From 65 BC to about 100 years, 70 AD, it was estimated that over 1 million Israelites fled into the interiors of Africa. So at this time, when 70 AD happened, a good portion, a lot of Israelites fled into the so-called interiors of Africa. They fled other places too, but the ones that fled into the so-called interiors of Africa, that's the ones that we're dealing with here. Because when they went there, eventually they would be there roughly about 1,500 years before they would start being brought over to this side of the world as servants and slaves. This is the place that was prepared. You can go to Joel, the 3rd chapter. You can go to Hosea, the 1st chapter, where she is nourished for a time and times and a half a time. Right. This goes again with that 350-year period from the face of the serpent. Let's see what it says in the NLT. But she was given 2 wings like those of a great eagle, so she could fly to the place prepared for her in the wilderness. Nope, that's not what that's talking about. There she would be cared for and protected from the dragon for a time, times, and half a time. No, so that's not a good translation. So, and to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, Israel, great escape, that she might fly into the wilderness, so-called Africa, interiors of Africa, into her place. Eventually, she will be brought here to America, to that place. Where she is nourished for a time and times and half a time, and Esau was taking care of Jake. But after 1969, 1970, they started cutting Jake off. And look at now. And the reason why they're doing that now is because they're setting up the new system in place, or they have the new system in place. They're just getting the right their right crisis or situation to be able to fully implement this digital system. I was watching a video, Elder Pastor, other brothers bringing out how I believe it's England now. When children are born, they're not going to have paper certificates. They're going to be, something's going to be put in them to identify them, as whatever, citizens of UK or whatever the case was. So it shows you that they're pushing forward with this digital agenda. All right, so let's go from there to Revelation 16. And 6. It says, for they have, I'll start at 4. And the 3rd angel poured out his vial upon the rivers and fountains of waters, and they became blood, contaminated. And I heard the angel of the waters say, thou art righteous, O Yahweh Bashem El Shai, which art and was and shall be, because thou has judged thus. Right, because America, the great whore, is going to be judged. For they, meaning these devils here, have shed the blood of saints and prophets, and thou hast given them blood to drink, for they are worthy. Bottom line. So the Lord, no matter how you slice it, these nations are going to be judged, and after they're judged, they're going into captivity. That's it. Next chapter over, Revelation 17:6. This is dealing with the judgment of the great whore, the doom of Babylon, right? Verse 6. And I saw the woman, America, Babylon the Great, drunken with the blood of the saints. Once again, drunken with the blood of the saints. There's a recompense for that. The controversy of Zion, and with the blood of the martyrs of Yahushai. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. So there's going to be a judgment for these nations. They're not going to go, they're not going to be beamed up into the chariot to be saved. You big lunkheads. Revelation 18 and 20, rejoice over her, thou heaven, and ye holy apostles and prophets, for the Most High hath avenged you on her. See? Now, Revelation 19 and 2, which this is the one. No, actually, Revelation 16 was the one that set off this idea for this lesson. Revelation 19 and 2, I started 1. And after these things, I heard a great voice of much people in heaven saying, Hallelujah, salvation and glory and honor and power unto the Lord our power. For true and righteous are his judgments, for he hath judged the great whore, America, Babylon the Great, which did corrupt the earth with her fornication. That's that wine, the Babylonian juice that they've been pushing on these nations through their democracy and their debaucherous lifestyle, and hath avenged the blood of his servants at her hand. And what you think is going to happen after that? Every last one of these survivors of Esau and the nations that are around the world, not in America, around the world, are going to be, gathered up, rounded up, and go into hardcore slavery. And that's that. And that's scripture. All right? So don't listen to them two magpies. They bugged out. Their bag, got a nice bag. Brothers are saying that, Assad, he might be a tear, and, I don't know if he is or not. No, but, it's a lot of madness going on, a lot of selling out going on. So, it is what it is. You could take the lessons or not. If you want to go follow them, go ahead and follow them. But even people that's in their circle are cursing them out, because they just did a flip-flop overnight, but hey, it must have been a nice bag. Enjoy it, because that's going to be your destruction, and I don't see them guys repenting, So with that, I pray that you brothers and sisters have been edified. Till the next time I say, Shalom.